Hi, it's Wednesday. Another edition of the Zogby Report, real and unscripted. Before I get going with my son partner, Jeremy, just want to thank everybody for watching, listening, reading last week's podcast. We have two records in a row in terms of viewer watchership, and then also the number of people who wrote in and voted as to who had the most effective arguments last week. Thank you. And so this week, I want to revisit that Republican debate of last week. We did a preview of it, and then we did a post view of it. Now, some polls are out. And as I begin by talking about some of those polls and what happened or didn't happen, Jer, I'd kind of like to make it a teachable moment as well, where we can share what to look for in polls, what's meaningful and really what is not meaningful. And so, you ready?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So, the big winner of last week's debate, not surprisingly, turned out to be Donald Trump. He wasn't on the stage and he wasn't talked about very much during the debate, but he was talked a lot about afterward. And in fact, the polls validate that conclusion because in every poll taken since the debate, the president is not only over 50%, but he's averaging 55%. So he's actually gone up a couple of points. We had stated that we thought Ron DeSantis was a big loser in the debate. And there the polls have a different story. He certainly wasn't a winner. Today's average in Real Clear Politics has him at 13.5%. One poll had him at 16%. But the bottom line is he came out of the debate where he was before. Right? So he was not able to take advantage of that high profile moment in front of over 11 million viewers to make any real dent. We had agreed that Nikki Haley had done very well, and I took note of a headline by Drudge, Haley surges post debate, and of course made me look. And so what I saw was that in one poll, Emerson College, she jumped from 2 points in their previous poll and other polls nationwide among Republicans to 7 points. Now, I will call that an increase, and I will call that a significant increase, something that makes me want to look for the next poll and the next poll to see if it's sustained or enhanced. But the truth is, in and of itself, 2 to 7 is not a surge. So I think Drudge got that one wrong. But secondly, polls taken since Emerson College put Haley back at 3% and 4%, respectively. So we've got to be very, very cautious. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Let's be very cautious about headlines. Those are as much to do with the media's agenda and even the pollsters' agenda. The winner in terms of buzz to be obtained from the debate, we had agreed was Vivek Ramaswamy. A lot of folks were talking about him. He got a lot of minutes of debate. He managed to walk off the stage. Every other candidate hating his guts. But they were talking about him. But we saw a little bit of a bump, but still a third and fourth place, most of the polls, and in single digits. And I think we'll stop right there. My bottom line here is look at polls closely. Number one, go beyond the headline, because headlines are for sensation and not necessarily for spot on truth. Secondly, don't look at Emerson's poll, Reuters poll, Yahoo's poll, and ABC's poll and see, uh, oh, she's up by 2. Oh, now she's up by 3. Look at from Emerson to Emerson, from Yahoo to Yahoo. Look at the trend per pollster, and then look at the bigger picture, because different polls use different methods, use different samples. They are not apples to apples. I think I'll stop right there. You've been doing this a while now. Tell me what you think.
Well, I'm going to build on what you said. And actually, I just took the 2 latest polls that are out. And so, I mean, I when a lot of these polls come out, they'll release anywhere from 80 pages to 100 pages, sometimes to just, a couple pages. But these ones, this is Harris X, and this is YouGov. And the first thing that I do is, I'm saying, what's the party distribution? Like, in other words, when they take these polls, what are they saying in the moment, as of today, is, Democrat turnout, independent turnout, Republican turnout, for this very early horse race question. We understand we are still months ahead of the primary season. But, so I get to YouGov, and I'm looking at their party breakdown, and we've talked about this before. They're saying Republicans only make 27% of the voter electorate today. They say that independents make up 37%, and they say that Democrats make up about 36 or 37%. Thus, adding up to about 100 or 101%. And I don't know. We've talked about Republicans only near a quarter. No, that sounds ridiculous. Why are independents so much higher? In our polls, we don't have independents as the most populous or among the most populous party identification. We actually have them. We have them lower. So then I take a closer look, and I look at the header of the data released, and this is a poll of adult citizens. So Real Clear Politics and other folks are running headlines about polls on adults. Adults are not those who vote. Voters are those who vote. So that's I can't even look further into this poll right there, because that's general population. You don't ask about elections, and I mean, you can poll about politics among general population, but it makes sense to look at those who say they will vote or those who are registered to vote. And so right there, here's a poll of the general population passing itself as an election poll. And I don't think that we should be necessarily referencing that. These should be about cultural topics. These should be about possibly current events, but certainly not elections. So I move that one out of the way. Then I go to Harris, and I've had a suspicion about this all along. Poll after poll after poll has Trump ahead by either 30 or 40 points, sometimes a little bit more. This one today, from Harris X, has Donald Trump at 59%, and then it has DeSantis at 14, Ramaswamy at 8, Pence at 6, Haley at 3, all of which you said. But then I look at the crosstabs for the demographic breakdown, and they don't even include independents. It says NAN, which I think means not applicable, N meaning the sample. So Harvard X is not releasing how independents would vote among those independents who say that they would vote in the Republican primary. They are releasing purely Republican numbers, which prompts me to ask, how many other pollsters are doing that when we're seeing this Donald Trump ahead by 30, 40, 50 points? Because Harris is doing this, I'm led to believe that other pollsters are just releasing Republican numbers, all of which is to say that's not reality. It is still easy in a lot of states for independents to vote in which primary they want. Some it's very easy, it's as simple as showing up on the day. I believe New Hampshire is like that. Others, it's got to be within, a month or so many days. So just to highlight and accentuate your point, compare apples to apples, look pollster to poll to poll, polling firm to polling firm is what you're saying. But then also look into these little details. Find the hyperlink to the data set and find out what is their party model? How does their party break down? And I've just given you two examples I think are misleading. YouGov polling on the election among general population. I don't know why they would even do that. And Harris X just releasing only the Republican numbers. We don't even know. The independents would certainly change that 59-14 lead. It would be much different. So that was really in the weeds. But that's some pretty useful information for people who want to know more about polls.
I believe so. I cut my eye teeth in polling by insisting on polling likely voters all year round. And some of my colleagues would say, well, how do you poll a likely voter for November way back in March? Well, they tell us they're likely voters. And one of the things I think that's vital is that someone who's a likely voter in March may not be in November, and we're able to track that. But it's very important to do apples to apples. So let's parse this for a second without getting too far into the weeds. So on one hand, we're talking about Republican primaries and caucuses. And the understanding is that not only Republicans can vote in the Republican primaries and caucuses, they still, for the most part, not entirely, New York is a prime example, that's a closed primary. Only registered party members can vote registered party's primary. But in most states, you have crossovers and you have independents, as you point out, and even some who are registered had been registered in the other party who are voting or who are saying that they're going to vote. That's something that we've got to watch. They may say they're going to cross over today, and then as the campaign wears on, maybe they're going to stay right where they are and vote in their own party's primary. One of the things that I caught in 2000, ancient history, right? But in the Democratic Party, you had Al Gore and Bill Bradley running against each other. And Bill Bradley was doing well in New Hampshire among independents, was competitive, the sitting vice president. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, you had John McCain doing extremely well among independents and challenging George W. Bush. And in the closing days of that primary, we discovered that folks were abandoning independents, abandoning abandoning Bill Bradley, who they had been supporting, and declaring that they were going to vote John McCain. They saw him as the true independent and moderate. Bradley ended up losing by 4 points. McCain, defying all the odds, ended up winning by 18 points. That's why when we're looking at these Trump leads that you just pointed out, nationally and in various states, they have to be in those polls have to be separating out independents, how many independents, and how many possible crossovers, how many Democrats that may vote, and vice versa. We're seeing in our polling this year, right, that a lot, well, more than usual, Republicans are saying that they may vote in the Democratic primary or caucus in their state to vote against Joe Biden. So that's something that we're watching very closely.
Yeah. And and just another example. I mean, I've seen in our polls, you know, Hispanics and African Americans tend to be in the bag for the Democrats. Not necessarily the case, at least in this moment. So if you're only capturing Republican, then you're missing out on a potentially bigger share of, for example, Hispanics who may be driven very much by the border issue. The border issue is a top 3, top 4 issue in a bag of very intense top issues, including the cost of living, including gun violence, and so yeah. I mean, there's all these little undercurrents that are going on, and you have to be sure that you're on top of all of them. And if your party distribution isn't right, then you're going to have a lot of problems in your polling.
So let's put on the second hat that we wear as pollsters, and that is, let's project, not predict. Let's project on the basis of data that we're looking at. And don't try this at home, folks, okay? We're just playing right now. Is there a scenario, or are there scenarios where Donald Trump does not win the Republican nomination? You want to take a crack at that first, or do you want me to?
Well, there are, and it's very simple. I mean, what I'm trying to figure out in this moment, post Donald Trump's big appearance on Tucker Carlson, first I'll start off with what I saw. Trump today is not the same Trump as he was in 2016. You go back and you watch, the reels of Trump in 2016, and it's a totally different person. Trump he looks more gowlish, at least on that Tucker Carlson episode. He looks. I know. I'm sorry. I'm getting very deep here, but you can see the demons within him. So much about that conversation was about himself, and I know that's always been the case with Trump, this narcissism, but I'm seeing it take on and even he's being even more gripped with it. And none of the conversation, I'm not going to say none, but from what I watched, and I tried to watch more than half of it, I didn't see much about policy. I didn't see much about vision. I didn't, 2016, it was MAGA. It was, the globalism is taking its toll on this country. It's hollowing out the country. There's the forgotten half of the country. Their economic prospects are dying. And meanwhile, we're bound by all these trade deals that are screwing us and these endless wars. And it's like, wow, that's a vision. That's a radical new direction, what he's talking about. Now it's all I, me, mine. They stole it from me. The crazy left, they're crazy. They're nuts. And pardon, I'm just going to be, I'm going to say my French, it's a shit show. And so the thing to watch is as Trump goes deeper and deeper and gets gripped more and more by his vices, is there an attrition among MAGA, or do they go deeper into that initiation process of what becomes more and more the cult of MAGA? Or do more and more folks start to see this guy's got too much baggage? He's contributing just as much to the division of the country. And then who do they look to? And I think it's still early in the game where, it's too hard to tell which path MAGA voters are going to take, but that's the precise thing that I'm watching.
I'm watching are two separate things. The first are the numbers, and I still say, and I've said it on the podcasts before, that one of the most dangerous things for him in a crowded field is to be up over 50%, 55%. That creates a bar, a set of expectations, so that if we get into the situation where in Iowa and then New Hampshire, he doesn't meet that bar, and it actually becomes then a, quote, majority of Republicans voting against Donald Trump, who did not even meet what pre-election polls were showing, that could in itself could be damaged goods for Donald Trump, especially as the Republican field winnows, and now you've got 2 and 1 candidate facing him. That's for non-Trumpers and never-Trumpers. the perfect scenario, because then the trials are going on. Then MAGA is shrunk. And then there may be an ascendancy, possibly an ascendancy of one candidate can congeal, the non-Trumpers. Another piece of that as well is folks just get tired, particularly independents who in the early primaries. Here's a counter scenario. We see Republicans saying, I'm probably going to vote in a Democratic primary to make life as difficult as possible for Joe Biden. I don't want Joe Biden to run. And as a Republican voting, I'm going to embarrass him. But then what about Democrats who maybe sees that the Democratic side is already settled and who decide on primary day, I'm going to vote in the Republican primary and caucus just to embarrass Donald Trump? That's one scenario. The other scenario I think that can hurt him is that he entered office in 2017, let's say a blank slate and unprepared. Very difficult to know who Donald Trump really was. What was he going to do and plan to do? And a lot of his agenda was a hodgepodge. A lot of his appointees were a hodgepodge. It took him forever to make them. This time, apparently, he has task forces and policy teams, and he is calling for drastic tax cuts, which are always popular, but also drastic, dramatic cuts federal budget. I mean, along the lines of the Erskine Bowles Commission, the Grace Commission of the 1990s, where you're taking whole departments and agencies and eliminating them, slashing them down. And whereas people love to have tax cuts, everybody loves the services that they get. In fact, they want even more. And less federal government means less services. And that's going to be really something that people are going to have to do a thumbs up, thumbs down on. That could hurt them.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just add a little more down to earth dimension to what I said, that I highlighted that something's taking a toll on him, and obviously maybe it is the nonstop legal problems. I mean, I would imagine that drains somebody emotionally. We know it does financially. So I just wanted to clarify that, but yeah, let's see what happens. Let's figure out whether there's any attrition and what triggers that among MAGA, whether Trump can get his mojo back. I mean, this is by my estimation. I mean, of course, it could very well be true that once he gets in front of those rallies, the old Donald Trump reemerges, but that's what I'm going to be looking to, whether he can resurrect that level of 2016 vision. We know the excitement is there, but can he provide a vision that keeps his base well intact?
And I'm going to be looking for whether or not one or two challengers emerge. It looked like Vivek and Haley, to me, were the buzz winners. They got most of the attention after the debate, but so far the numbers have shown, minimal kinds of gains, nothing yet to brag about. And so that's it. Keep viewing, keep sharing. A lot of you folks, thousands of you actually shared, and keep letting us know what you think. Have a good week.